This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 331, baby. Oh yeah. In today's episode, I speak to Charlie from the British English podcast. We've had him on a few times, haven't we? And we speak to him because he did something amazing recently. He did a live podcast in London, and I thought, wow, that is impressive. So we have a quick chat about that and then talk about live events in general. But before we start, in case you haven't heard, I am running a free vocabulary challenge, a 2-week vocabulary challenge named Advanced English Vocabulary for Lazy People, because I know you are lazy like me and you never actually study. So the way this challenge has been designed is that you don't need to study. There is no study this, do this. All you need to do is listen, and my method of using vocabulary repeatedly in stories will mean that you remember it automatically and you won't need to study. So if you want to take part in that challenge, stop the podcast you're listening to right now and click the link in the description to the podcast. It's totally free. It lasts 2 weeks. So what the hell have you got to lose? Anyway, here is the podcast with Charlie. I will talk to you all again at the end. Happy listening. So, hello, Charlie, and welcome back to Rock and Roll English.
Hello, Martin. Thank you very much for having me back on. It's been a while. Excited to get back into Rock and Roll English.
Always, exactly. Yeah, it's been a while. We like to do this every 6 months-ish, I think, don't we?
Yeah. Don't want to do it too often, because otherwise we don't know what we're talking about with each other.
We want to keep it exciting as well, don't you? You know, we want to keep our relationship, we want to keep the passion there, don't we?
Imagine that in a relationship. I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah, I'll see what Mrs. R&R says about that if I mention that to her.
You doing okay though?
Yeah, surviving as usual.
Surviving
is the best way.
The father of two.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking the other day that it's the small things which you don't really appreciate until you have kids. Like, for example, if I went out for dinner with you, okay, taking our relationship to the next level, I would now appreciate the fact that you, well, hopefully didn't piss yourself or shit your pants. I would also appreciate you probably not throwing food on the floor. I would appreciate you not crying. I would appreciate, there's so many things which I never thought about. I'd appreciate you like not coughing directly in my face.
I know a few friends that would challenge this. But yeah, I mean, that also means that you can have great friendships with people that you don't have much in common with.
Yeah, my outlook of life has just totally changed. I think everyone's like well all right now. Whilst before I thought, you know, he's a bit of an idiot, but now I think, God, he hasn't shit himself all day. Like, what a great bloke. Yeah, I've just been asking myself, at what point do you take that for granted? Because it's a big thing now.
As a non-parent. At what point do you take that
just for as another human? So when you talk to another human, that you just think, oh, you know, he hasn't shit his pants today, and that's really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice to be grateful for that.
Yeah,
that's a silver lining of
always
having
looking
to
at
deal.
the positives. In life. That's me now. But so we have a very interesting podcast today because Charlie has been a very busy boy and did something recently which I thought, wow. That is amazing, because you did a live podcast in London. So we're going to be talking about live events. That has helped me think of a topic. But obviously, there's no better place to start than your live podcast. So how was it?
Yeah, it was last week, so it's fresh in my mind. It was so fun. Okay. I had quite a few nightmares leading up to it, thinking it would be...
I wouldn't have slept for a week. I remember before my wedding, well, the night before, I actually did not sleep because it was just constant nightmares. That's my one regret in life, not getting shit-faced the night before my wedding, because if I had got shit-faced, I wouldn't have thought about it and I would have got some sleep, but
Right.
I didn't.
But would you not have felt terrible the next day? My hangovers are epic. So
yeah, but I was so tired on the day. It was, hopefully Mrs. R&R won't listen to this, but it was a bit like, I must admit at some point I did look at my watch during the wedding thinking like, when can I go to bed? Because I was so tired. I had not slept a wink.
Yeah, good phrase. I had not slept a wink. So Stacey, my wife, she planned a lot of the wedding and then she got no sleep because she was stressed about quite a few things. Whereas I slept and I woke up to this amazing day that had been planned for me, and she was just knackered all the way through the day. I was like, this is the best day of my life. She was like, I want my bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was similar to you, I guess, in some regards. But so I didn't sleep. I had some bad night's sleep leading up to it, partly because of the pressure of people flew in. I was so amazed.
Whoa.
People flew in from different countries to come and see this. They obviously made a weekend of it, but yeah, that pressure of knowing people flying in for it made me think, okay, I've got to have a really good conversation for this. So I spent far too long preparing for it, which was necessary, but at the same time stressful. But in the moment and post show, it was a really cool feeling because I loved it. I loved being on stage and performing, and people were laughing. It was a really nice feeling to get that first laughter.
I can imagine. Wow. Yeah. Again, going back to weddings, when I've done the best man duties before, that's pressure, isn't it? Because it's not just talking. It's like you have to talk and make people laugh.
Yes. Best man duty I am not envious of because of the fact that you're the comedian of the night. Yeah, effectively.
Exactly. Yeah. At my brother's wedding, actually, this was like later on. I'd told some funny stories, and then I sort of said, "Well, like in all serious, I really love my brother." And I say, "You could say I love him like a brother." It was almost nothing there. I was waiting for a huge laugh, but I was like, you could hear the bloke at the back like coughing. Okay, let's move on. What else? Let's just talk about the other really funny things that I said before.
I would have laughed. I mean, maybe, it depends on the delivery, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Was it a bit obvious, the delivery?
I think I was building myself up because that was the only real gag I had, proper joke. And then I think I just went for it too much. I was like, well, I think he'll love him like a brother.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I kind of lost it a bit.
Yeah, when it's forced, I suppose that's where those kind of jokes are like, ooh.
Yeah.
But if it sounds a bit silly and like, oh, then it's a bit more natural.
This was because, again, when I saw you were doing that, I thought, oh, God, that's such a great idea. I'm definitely going to do this. And then I thought, oh, actually. And then I started having all of those fears coming in. I think that joke came back to my mind and I thought, oh, no, I'll stick to the online stuff. Thanks.
No.
Behind the screen.
You should definitely do it. My recommendation, so I did a test email to see how many people were interested. Quite a few people got back to me and were confirmed. I had to change the date because the theatre wasn't able for that date, which might have affected things. But I would say less people came than I had predicted.
Exactly.
That prediction in hindsight was, I don't know if it was just I don't think it was arrogance, but it was hopefulness of selling out like a whole theatre. So I would say start off with a smaller place. Yeah. And if you sell out, then that's great. And then next time you can go bigger.
Like my bedroom, have 3 people in my bedroom record a podcast. I'm recording a podcast in my bedroom now, so I suppose it's the full experience you would be getting. And maybe I can fit 4 or 5 people in. Would have to talk to the wife about this, about having strangers in our bedroom. But I suppose it's one thing. If I got an email saying from a podcast I listened to, would you be interested in a live show in Berlin? I'd be like, yeah, I'll click yes. And then it's like, oh, actually, I'm not. Nah. I'm not going to actually do it. I just click yes on the form. I didn't actually mean yes, of course.
I should have taken that kind of filtering through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've I've been to quite a few live shows of other podcasts that I enjoy, and they do a lot of them. And obviously, I can't go to all of them. And once I've done one, I sometimes feel like I might not go to that again. So yeah, there's a lot of variables with it all.
But what you mentioned there about other ones you've been to, so that's where we're going now, okay, to talk about live events. Okay, so I've got a list. So I had to go to ChatGPT to think of like live events you could go to. Okay, so I've got a list, and so I'll quickly go through. I'll read what I've got on the list, and then we will have a look at each one. Okay, so on my list I've got concert, obviously live event, podcasts, comedy, so like stand up, sporting event, theatre, conventions and expos. That one's kind of pushing it a little bit, I think. But then I've got educational events like conferences, political events, protests, fashion shows, and the last one, sex shows. Okay,
sex shows.
Now,
did ChatGPT suggest that?
Well, no, I added that one. I saw fashion show, and I thought, just with show after, what else do I know? Sex show. Yeah, okay, I'll add that to the list.
That is fantastic. I don't mean to sound like a prude, but what is a sex show? Is it? Oh, is in like strippers?
No, we will get to that one though. Okay, because believe me, I've got a story.
Okay, I think I know
that one.
I've been. Yeah.
We will definitely get to that one. It might even be in the family podcast by the time we get there, but we will get there. So we're going to go through these. So like, have you been to one? What are your thoughts on them? Okay. So, and also maybe think, what is your best type of live event? We can maybe do that at the end. Like we'll analyze them, and then what's your best one? Yeah. So concert. I'd imagine you've been to a concert.
I've been to concerts. Yes.
Yeah.
Is a festival a concert?
Yeah, so I've got that on my list. Yeah, I think you can count that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a concert of a friend who filmed my live show.
Okay.
So he's a musician, or was a big musician when he was like 16, 17. He did tours around England at that age, and now he's kind of got a real like corporate job.
Real job. I love that expression. He was a musician. It's not a fucking job. He's got a real job now. He works in finance.
Yeah, I had to add corporate there. He's got a corporate job.
Okay.
But he did a gig for a passion project kind of thing the other day, and I went to that. So I experienced that concert, which was cool. I should do more of them because I really appreciate live music. It's nice to be in the room with the artist. Yeah. And it's special.
Yeah, so concerts I think would be near the top of the list for me of like best, but like with the caveat that I do also need to be very intoxicated to really get the full experience. Like when you're really like being at a festival day, the last act, whoever is on, and it's someone you really like, my God, that is big. For example, I remember seeing Oasis in 2005 at the V Festival. And that was big. And I must admit, I've been to other concerts whilst not being intoxicated, and again have found myself looking at my watch thinking, what time does this finish again?
Yeah. So I went to Glastonbury last year for my first time ever. I've only been to 2 festivals in my life. I think the other one,
I think I've only been to 2 as well.
Festival when I was 21, and this one last year. So I was similar to you, and I was a bit upset at how, if it's a main stage and it's a very popular act, you've got to get there at least an hour before.
Fuck that, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to wait, and if you want to continue drinking, you've got to consider how many drinks you want, how warm you want to drink them at, and peeing. That's a nightmare.
I was just about to go to that one. And if you're asking, yes, I have peed in a cup.
Have you?
At a festival. I'm not throwing it because, people do that and then they throw it, don't they?
Oh, well done. Well done, Martin.
I just wanted to underline that I'm not a total scumbag, okay? So that involved me dancing dancing, sort of listening to music for like an hour with 2 very large very large paper cups of my own piss, trying obviously not to spill it,
I was disgusted thinking it was plastic, but thank God it's paper.
It was paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when I was at one in Spain, and yeah, it wasn't great. But the good thing is then you do get a bit of space because everyone kind of doesn't want to stand near you. So it is a good way to get like your own bit of space. But
God, I can't believe what you said about throwing it.
I remember specifically my friend getting what we seemed like a drink thrown at him, and all that we said was, that is a very, very warm drink, if that's a drink.
It was a drink. It was just filtered through a human.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so concerts for me would be right near the top. But okay, let's move to the next one. Podcast. So I've only been to one live podcast, which was a football one. Writers from The Guardian. Just get that in there, okay? Guardian. So it was an intelligent football one, okay? And I mean, I must admit, I actually wasn't a big fan because, like, for example, if you go to like a concert or something, I'm not saying your gig was shit or anything like that.
No, I mean, like, you're keen to do it, but you're like, as an audience member, terrible.
Yeah, because there is no, like, if you go to a concert, there's atmosphere, like, or like if you go to a football match, there's atmosphere, but you might see something, someone does something, you're like, wow, like takes your breath away. But if you're just going to watch some people have a chat, and I remember the person did make a joke about that. He said something like, thanks for coming to watch three blokes have a chat, three blokes that have never even played football because they were just journalists. And then I did kind of question what I was doing there.
But a terrible start to the conversation to just plant this seed of doubt in everyone's mind. Why are we here? Oh yeah, why are we here?
Yeah, I really did then start thinking, what the hell am I doing? But what about your experience with watching live podcasts?
So my love for it started with a man that got on stage with another man with a plastic bag on his head to hide his identity.
I was going to say, is that safe? Plastic bag? Maybe I'll use a cardboard box with holes in so I can breathe.
Yeah, he did have a gap for his eyes and mouth.
Okay.
His name is, he goes by the stage name as Blind Boy. He's an Irish musician and now podcaster.
Okay.
He's a cultural podcaster. And mental health, but really...
So look, Charlie's podcast, I went to a football one, he's gone to this cultural, mental health, all of this stuff. Sure.
Yeah, you can tell the difference, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So his was quite insightful, like, as a listener through the apps and stuff. So I was excited to see his live one. His guest was not my cup of tea. Okay. But still... I loved the fact that it's such a niche audience and we're all in the same room together.
Yeah, that is good. I must admit.
I love that feeling that everyone here has a really, really specific interest that I also have.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that immensely. So that was part of why I wanted to do it. And then I went to see some comedians do some live podcasts as well.
Well, this brings me on to the next one, actually. Comedian, because like stand-ups as well. So, for example, I saw Ricky Gervais, I think Wembley Arena. And again, I came out of that and I was a bit like, why did I spend all that money? Travel like, after work all the way to Wembley. And because... obviously Wembley Arena is very big and you kind of you can't really see him, and then you're just looking at, you're basically watching a screen, and I'm thinking I could have just watched that screen at home. Like
I've been to Wembley for a comedian, Lee Evans, the really animated one that sweats through his suits. I watched him through the screen, and I get quite tired if it's hot. My eyes really struggle to stay awake.
That's the last thing you need as a comedian, seeing someone sleeping.
No, and if the seat isn't comfortable and it's like 8 to 10 p.m, I'm like, I'm ready to fall asleep right now. So a lot of the time, live events, I'm struggling to stay awake, which is very old manish, but it's frustrating to be paying and then be like, I just want to fall asleep right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Same with the cinema.
Yeah. And again, I've been even at concerts when I mentioned I was looking at my watch kind of thinking, I think I would actually rather be in bed now than here. I've paid money to be here. I've travelled here. And I'm looking at my watch thinking I would prefer to be in bed. And that's a sad state of affairs, isn't it, when that's happening?
Yeah. But the flip side, so the last comedian podcast, it's called Bud Pod. It's two, so there's one, he's Malaysian British and one South African British comedians. They do a podcast. I mean, it's pretty lowbrow. They get listeners sending in their stories of pooing themselves.
Right. It sounds quite like rock and roll English, actually. Yeah.
It's really good. It could be quite interesting for your listeners as well. So I went to 2 of their live shows, and both times it was incredible, and just having an audience laughing at the same time, everyone getting the same gags. It really, I think that's what I'm chasing as a live audience member, trying to be part of that same emotion at the same time.
That is good. But okay, so moving to the next one though, sporting event like that, so the atmosphere, like, well, I know you're not a massive football fan, but at times when I've been to a football match, I mean, you do end up going to lots of football matches that are absolutely shit, but you can, when you go to that special one and then something amazing happens, right, there really is nothing like it. And just that atmosphere of like when a goal goes in, it's just for me, there's nothing like it, and I enjoy it more. I went obviously a lot when I was a child, probably certainly more than I do now. But when you're an adult and you make a whole day of it, like you get on the train early, like you're drinking and then singing like a madman, oh my god, there's nothing, just gives you the license to behave like a yob. Like, so yob being a nice word for hooligan-ish, I suppose.
Yeah, I would argue that yob is a hooligan without the violence.
Yeah, I think that describes me quite well because I'm not a violent person. I do like to act like a hooligan.
I'll pee in a cup, but I won't throw it.
And there is just nothing better. What's your experience? So you must have been to a football match in your life.
Yeah. Been to probably 20, I'd say.
Okay, right.
So I've been to quite a few, but not for a few years. I think my main gripe with it is that I don't know any of the chants, the songs and stuff. Yeah. So I feel like an imposter, and I'm a bit conscious of my behavior. Obviously no one is caring, but I'm still like, oh, I don't know the words.
you think everyone's looking at you going, why is he not singing? What an idiot.
Yeah. Shame. Yeah, they all turn around.
Rather embarrassingly, I have found myself in the past Googling chants before
I think that's fine. That's good. I like that. I'm going to do that.
It's not a very, like, if you get caught doing that, like on the train, it's not good for your street cred as a yob.
Absolutely. No.
So
as a yob. He's not a yob.
Yeah, exactly.
He's Googling how to be a yob.
A yob wannabe. So we are going to continue this episode in the members area where, of course, we do talk about the sex show. But anyway, having a quick look at some of that vocabulary, we had the term take for granted. So I mentioned how I used to take things for granted, like people not coughing in my face and throwing food on the floor. So when you take something for granted, you kind of just expect that to happen and you are not thankful for it. You're kind of just like, yeah. When I lived in Sicily, I took the sea for granted. I went to the beach most days and I was just like, yeah, it's the sea. Now when I see the sea, I'm like, oh, that is so amazing. I also mentioned how my outlook on life has changed. So the way I see life, my outlook on life. I have a lovely expression when I mentioned I didn't sleep before my wedding. I said I didn't sleep a wink. Quite obvious. Didn't sleep for 1 second. I used some nice grammar as well, where I said if I had got drunk, I would have slept. Third conditional, if I had got drunk, I would have slept. I mentioned how the joke at my brother's wedding wasn't so well appreciated, I suppose. I said I was building myself up for the joke. So when you're building yourself up for something, you are preparing for it. And I also mentioned how it was the only gag. Now, a gag is something like that, where you expect a kind of drum roll after you say it, where you use, let's say, a play on word. That is what I would describe as a gag. Then when I mentioned the sex show, Charlie said, I don't want to sound like a prude. So what is a prude? A prude is someone that, let's say, gets shocked, especially about sex. Like, oh my God, don't talk about that thing. And last but not least, we had the word yob, which I think described quite well. So a yob is a kind of a rude, not very nice person, very often drunk. So all of the vocabulary will be on the website rockandrollenglish.com. Click podcast episodes and go there. But don't forget about the vocabulary challenge starting on the 21st of May. Remember, it's free. It's 2 weeks. It's designed for lazy people, so you don't even need to study. So what the hell are you waiting for? Just click the link in the description to this podcast. I will see you very soon, people. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.